Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode season 2. This is 31 of my I Love Learning podcast. My name is Dr. Gina Anderson, and I'm the host of the I Love Learning podcast and the CEO of Luma Brighter Learning. If you aren't familiar with Luma, we help the transportation and logistics industry save lives through our award-winning learning platform. To find out more about Luma, you can go to lumabrighterlearning.com. I would love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the link in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please let us know where you're tuning in from around the world in the chat. And if you're ready for this week's guest, type "let's go" in the comments. You all, I am so overjoyed to introduce you today to John Golden. And John and I were talking a little bit before we came live today, and he is a really incredible and inspiring human. And in fact, he speaks on how to become the best version of yourself, which is so inspiring. I love that so much. He is an author and a speaker. He's written 2 books. He might tell us about them. We'll put them in the comments as we go. But he focuses in on sales, and something that I know at Luma we love to talk about is building a pipeline for sales. And so I am so honored to have John Golden with us today. So let's put our hands together and let's say hello to John. So John, hello.
Hello, how you doing, Dr. Gina? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're with us today. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you're passionate about?
Yeah, my name is John Golden. I am the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer with Pipeliner CRM. That's a CRM system. I'm also the host of the Sales Pop podcast. I've done over 1,600 interviews of experts from around the world in sales, marketing, leadership, motivation, innovation. We even got into some stuff like mental health and stuff in the past as well, because we see it all as all connected. And my passion is about giving salespeople the best tools to enable them to do their job, and at the same time to educate and elevate the role of salespeople as the tip of the spear, as the people who can bring people together, connect businesses with solutions. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I love that. Obviously, I've done a little bit of sales being the CEO of my company because we started it and we bootstrapped. And so I had to convince people early on why Luma. And I think about all the hurdles that go along with that because it's really, really hard to sell. I think it's one of the toughest business jobs that you can have is to be on the front line and to do what you're passionate about. Hi, Joe. I'm so glad you're with us. Joe's a superstar. He knows about selling himself too. He's looking for work, so he's incredible. But it's hard. It's hard to sell a product. It's hard to, be like Joe and selling yourself, like why you're the best person for this position. Tell us, John, do you have any recommendations in terms of like hurdles that you faced in terms of sales, and how did you like face that and kind of overcome those things?
Yeah, I mean, I take it right back, Dr. Gina, to when I graduated college in the 80s in Dublin, back in Ireland, and I came out of college during the worst recession. Ireland was broke. Ireland was a complete disaster. Unemployment was like through the roof, and so one of the first lessons was, you got to college, you got this degree, and you thought, okay, you'd followed the path, and you thought this was great. But then the reality hit you smack in the face, right? You come out and you say, yeah, you got a piece of paper, but guess what? There's 1,000 other people looking for that job that you want. So I think what I learned from that is you really have to dig deep and be resilient, and you have to pursue every opportunity. And my career path has been a circuitous one, but it's been one because I've taken I've taken the opportunities that have presented themselves, but I've also worked really hard to find those opportunities. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, was that you have to be resilient, you have to be self-reliant, and you have to be willing to take opportunities when they present themselves rather than talk yourself. Sometimes I think people talk themselves out of opportunities because,
Mm.
they always say about fear of failure, Dr. Gina. Sometimes I think fear of success holds people back because they go, I want to do this, I want this job. And then they think, I get this job, then maybe I have to move, and maybe then I'll be traveling. And they can come up with all these reasons not to even apply for something that they think that they want. So I think fear of success as well. But no, that is it, is dig deep and being resilient. And then work. It's like when you're looking for a job or anything in life, or sales are difficult, is like, treat it as a job. Like when you're looking for a job, treat it as a job. People say that, I know you've heard that before, but I truly believe that, and it's always worked for me. Like I work just as hard at that as I would at anything else. And then the other thing I would say for people like you just had on there, Joe, is take a moment out and look back at all of the things that you've done and realize how much you've achieved, and how many, what skills you have and what you have to offer. Because sometimes we forget, we kind of downplay ourselves. We think, well, we're not as impressive as maybe somebody else is. But sometimes you just need to take a time out, or maybe do it with a friend or a colleague or a mentor, and just have them ask you about your career path to date and some of the things you've done. And I guarantee you'll come out of that with a renewed kind of optimism and focus and confidence in yourself, when you realize, what an amazing person you are and what you have to offer.
That's beautiful. I love that, John, so much. And Joe knows he's a star, so he definitely great advice. It's hard. It's hard to consider that you're a
Yeah.
star when you're in that situation of being rejected or seemingly
Hmm.
rejected. It's really hard, and to have that resilience and the ability to do that. It's really interesting when you talk about holding yourself back. I've actually done that. I was in a race. This wasn't too long ago, and I was like going to PR, John, and I was like so close to
Hmm.
PRing in this race. And I kept telling myself like, oh my gosh, I'm going to PR. Like I can't win. I can't do this. I don't even know. I'm out of breath. Like my heart is
Hmm.
racing. And it's like, it's real how much your mind and thoughts control everything forward, isn't it? I mean, because I should have PR'd and I missed it by like 4 seconds. Like, well, I
Hmm.
knew I was going to miss it. Well, I shouldn't
Right.
have missed it.
Hmm. Yeah, and no, it is, and it's amazing how as you said, how much power our mind has, and that's why, I mean, I think mind body is so important, and I think that's one of the big failures, I think, of the Western medical system, is you break your leg, you go into one doctor, you're depressed, you go to a completely different doctor, but never the twain shall meet, right? So it's almost like
Oh, yeah.
separating things out, and I don't think I don't think they can't be. But you mentioned something as well about rejection, and obviously that's something that salespeople face more than any other job in the world. I mean, I think that's why sometimes people need to be a little bit more sympathetic and understanding of salespeople, and put yourself in their shoes and think about, can you imagine being in a job where probably 9 out of 10 times you're going to hear the word no to what you're
That was one
saying,
of our
right?
questions, John. Julie asked that. Julie found from last week. I wanted to ask you this question. So this is perfect timing. She said, what pep talk do you give yourself before hearing the potential no? Or, I mean, you're leading right into
Mm.
this.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things. I think number one is you have to be able to be honest with yourself and say, have I done everything I could possibly do? Have I done my best job here? So have I presented everything? Have I answered all the questions? Have I come with a good offer? All of these things, right? If Is there anything else I could possibly have done? And if you can answer all of those questions, then if you get the yes, it's fantastic. But if you get the no, then you know that you did everything you could possibly. And there are always things that are outside of your control. You can only control how you show up. You can only control whether you have put the work in, whether you have given the information, whether you have mapped the solution and it looks like it's a good one and all of that. But you know, you don't have ultimate control obviously under the over the final decision. But I think you have to be able to be honest with yourself. And on the other side, you have to be able to say, okay, well, I screwed that one up. I didn't do everything I could have. I didn't put the effort in. Maybe I skipped a few steps at the beginning. So yeah, I'm going to have to take this one and learn from it. But if you can look yourself in the eye and say, no, I did everything I possibly could, then I think you just, you know, then you just move on and, you know, just use that to remember that it's not personal. It's not you, it's the job. And you move on and be excited to meet the next person who you will be able to solve their problem for.
Absolutely. My sales team, I want to give a shout out to them. I mean, honestly, Andy and Chris Butler and Chris Barger. I mean, I have utmost respect for any sales individual because you hear no so much,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like we were talking about this before we came on, but like today the behaviors are so strange
Oh,
because right? Because you could have a great relationship you think going with a prospect or someone in your life and then all of a sudden they just stop talking to you. What's that about?
yeah, this is getting more bizarre because yeah, we were just saying about, you know, preparing yourself for a no. I mean, nowadays sometimes you're lucky to get the no. You know, you just get nothing, you get no feedback, you get ghosted. And this is a bizarre behavior that has crept into society now. And obviously it's, you know, the digital, I think is a lot to do with obviously social media, digital, and kind of hiding. We're at an arm's length from people. We're hiding behind our little device or screen or whatever. And I think unfortunately, and I have to say it is unfortunate that this behavior where people just don't feel um they don't feel like they, it's almost like manners and empathy and stuff. They don't feel like they need to be polite or nice to you and say, actually, I should reply to Gene. I should say, unfortunately, maybe this isn't the right time, blah, 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 right now. Or something changed, or I changed my mind, whatever, it doesn't matter. But this way, this kind of way of just saying, no, I'll just ignore them and they'll go away eventually. I think once you start engaging in that behavior, personally, I think that behavior will start to permeate all aspects
Mm.
of your life, and you will start to become one of those avoiders, right? Somebody who avoids conflict, who
Oh,
avoids situations, who avoids difficult conversations, who would avoid speaking or whatever, but things that will spill over into the rest of your life, and not in a good way. So I think if you fall in one of those people who fall into the habit of just not answering or ghosting or whatever, um, uh, I really, you know, okay, unsolicited, that's fine. If somebody unsolicited, you know, and you don't reply to them, that's one thing. But when you've been engaged in a conversation with somebody and they have invested their time and effort in it, you owe them at least the, yeah, maybe it's not the right time right now, or sorry, yes, I said we were going to be doing this, but I can't. You know, people, that is a whole heap better than waiting day after day and saying, oh goodness, you know, are they ever going to follow up, or feeling like a, you know, feeling like a jilted
right.
a jilted partner, you know, chasing somebody down, please call me back.
I
But
know, it's so tough. I had
yeah,
one of my sales associates that retired, that was his biggest, one of his biggest complaints is like, I just want a response.
yeah, yeah. So
They just want
yeah,
a
so if you could just
response.
take one thing away from today, is just go that one extra mile, is to just make that response. Like I said, it doesn't matter what the response is. The salesperson will really, really appreciate in the company. And we've got to remember, I mean, that poor salesperson is going back and their managers asking them, well, what's up with this one? Well, I'm still waiting to hear back from them. And you know, it wastes people time. It takes away their productivity, their money. So just, there you go. If you take one thing away, just be polite.
Be polite.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I love that. Be connected, be polite, all of those things. What is winning to you, John?
Yeah, and this is one of those great questions, Gina. Is that it changes, doesn't it, as you get older and your circumstances change. The idea of winning, because a lot of times, when we're younger and we're all, we think we have this kind of winner takes all mentality, isn't it? Like
Mm.
you're either first or you're a loser, right? There's no other,
Oh,
and uh, and and so we're competing, and we often see winning as like, did I get the best for me, right? But
mm,
my concept of winning, and certainly this is one that shared the founder of Pipeline, or one thing that we promote as our company, is the concept of winning together. I think winning at the end of the day is when both parties, say in a sales situation, is when you get a fair price for your product, that you're happy with. Maybe it's not as much as you'd like to, but you got what is a fair price. The other person got a fair deal. There's no hidden, there's no hiccups, there's nothing hidden. People trust each other, and then both people can feel happy about the experience. Because at the end of the day, why should buying and selling not be an enjoyable experience? Like, one person is providing a solution, getting paid for, the other person's getting something that's going to help them or
right.
impact their life in some way. So it should be enjoyable, but we've turned it into this adversarial thing. So that's what I'm saying today. For me, winning means when the outcomes of anything, regardless of whether it's a sales deal or whatever, but the outcome of anything is that both parties feel like they won and are happy with the outcome.
I love that, and I think you can apply that to a lot of different
Yeah.
situations, John. Because I think about, like, hiring and bringing people on, or, delivering a good to a client, like, all these interactions that you have with someone where there's goods being
Mhm.
exchanged, or a sales process, or you are entering into an employment, arrangement,
Yeah.
and you're negotiating. It's anytime you have to negotiate, even, like, if you're going through something specific in a marriage, you need to negotiate. It doesn't have to be like one person wins and one person
Yeah.
loses. It's collaborative. And I think
Yeah.
you're right, like, thinking in this collaborative mindset of having a really productive being in a productive place where you both feel good, because I think a lot of times is when that breaks down that people start feeling empty and lonely and
Mhm.
lost. And I have this question I ask because if somebody goes through something like that and they're feeling at this place of helplessness, what would you say to them? Like, what if they go through this, like, cycle or this connection of sales, and at the end it's like just left them feeling gross and empty.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say that at a point like that, I think number one, if you reach that point, you probably need to reassess a couple of things. But first of all, I would always go again, if you can say, like, I've been doing my best, because we have to come back to the end of the day, Dr. Gina. As much as it's so tempting for us to look externally and, like, find 52 reasons why we're in this situation, the only ones we can control are the ones that we can control. And so that means, am I in the right position? Like, I mean, am I, regards to whether that's a relationship or whether that's a job or something, am I in the right place? Do I really want to be here? Have I asked myself that question? What's my purpose? Why am I even doing this in the first place? I think you have to ask yourself those questions. I think you also have to, again, like I said earlier, look back and go, yeah, I've succeeded before, so yes, I'm in a situation now that may not be fantastic, but I know I can get out of it. So reminding yourself that you haven't suddenly, like, lost the capabilities to do everything. Um, and then I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think is also start asking yourself, um, let's go back to basics and go back to the fundamentals of whatever it is I'm doing. If it's a relationship, let's go back to the essence and fundamentals of that relationship and work on that. If it's in business, let me look at, have I been doing everything the correct way? Have I been taking shortcuts? Have I been a little bit complacent? Are there things that are completely within my control that I can start to look at? And then I think what you need to do is you need to just set yourself a plan to say, okay, now these are the things I'm going to do now. I'm going to look at my circumstance. I'm going to look at my job. Do I need to talk to my manager? Do I need to go back and do some of the basics? Do I need, and here's the other thing, or am I in the kind of slump where I need a coach? Maybe I
Mm.
need to go out and hire a coach or find a mentor, find somebody who can, because that's the beautiful thing at the end of the day, Gina, is like we don't have to do this stuff on our own, do we? I mean, but we
No.
feel when it comes to jobs, we always feel like, and I think this has been ingrained in us, uh, is that we feel like it's a weakness, or it's a weakness to ask for help or to say you need help,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Despite the fact that the world is so complex now, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you couldn't possibly know anything, everything. But I say this a lot is, my first executive level position, when I was first on on an executive team, I hired a coach, right?
Mhm.
Just privately on my own. Nobody need to know about it. But I decided, okay, this was a step up, and I really wanted to prepare myself. And the beautiful thing about that, when I started with this coach, the coach said to me, right, so what do you want? And I said, well, I want to be the best. I want to be the best executive on the executive team. And she was like, yeah, yeah, okay, okay. And then she goes, why wouldn't you want to be like the CEO or in charge or whatever? And I was saying, well, yeah, I mean, I would like that. And so she changed it. So a few years later, I did become CEO of some companies, right? But again, she changed my perspective and my frame of reference, where I was limiting myself. I was sort of setting
Mm.
myself, I want to be the best on this team, instead of saying, no, I want to be the best because I'm on a journey to here. And so I think what I say a lot to people is, we all have our hobbies, we all have things that we love to do, like our sports or whatever. I guarantee you, like if you're a golfer, I guarantee you've paid out a fortune over the years in golf lessons, right?
That's
Now,
true, probably.
now maybe you're pretty decent at it, but I guarantee you, you're not making enough money to replace your income, right, with golf. So maybe investing a little bit of money on the thing that puts bread on your table might be more advantageous to you than knocking another stroke off your whatever. I'm not a golfer, so as you can tell.
Yeah.
But seriously, so I would recommend to people, you know, maybe you think, oh, well, a coach is really expensive. I guarantee you, in the long run, it's not. It's an investment that will repay you if you get the right one. If you feel like don't have money except for that, go find a mentor. Go find a more senior person, somebody, or maybe somebody who's semi-retired, or somebody you really admire who could give you a few moments, whatever. But yeah, um, a lot of stuff you have to do yourself and it's in your control, but you don't have to do everything by yourself.
That is beautiful. I love that advice because some people, why the question is why not? Why not
Why not?
me? Why
Yeah,
not you?
yeah,
It's like everyone has the opportunity to connect and get help, and it's not
yeah.
a limitation. It actually makes you stronger.
Yeah. And most people, if you ask them, if you say to most people, like, if somebody called me up and I'd said, would you mind like giving me a bit of advice over time? I've done this with people in the past, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And most people are like that. I mean, I know most people I call up and ask for advice would be more than happy to spend a little time with you, and they would follow up, and they would take a genuine interest. So there's somebody out there in your network, I guarantee you, who you could reach out to if you don't want to hire a professional coach. But if you can hire a professional coach, I guarantee you, it'll impact your career.
That's awesome. I love that advice. So next week we have Dr. Christopher Alber, who's going to be on our podcast. He is the superintendent of the Excel Center, which is part of the Goodwill Industries. And he was a former school teacher, principal, coach, and he is an incredible human being. What should we ask him next week? What should be his question?
Oh yeah, I was going to say we've seen this with Goodwill, and that is saying like, how do you continue to inspire people to be charitable when
Hmm.
there's so many options out there and people are so distracted? And to be honest, people are very self-centered right now. But how do you manage to continue to motivate people to be charitable, especially for Goodwill, when there's all this competition and people are kind of self-absorbed?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think that, it's a lot, to ask for that. So we'll look forward to seeing what Chris says next week. I appreciate that. All right, John, leave us with some lasting advice today. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can get your books and all of the good stuff. And if someone wants to reach out for advice like you offered or to learn more about sales, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at pipelinersales.com. You can find me at salespop.net. Yeah, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest place. If you do send me a message on LinkedIn and I don't get back to you, it's not I'm ghosting. Is that LinkedIn unfortunately has become so spammy, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with the stuff. But my lasting piece of advice would be, just to quote my compatriot Oscar Wilde, is just be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
That's an incredible way to send us off today, John. We'll be ourselves, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It was good to see so many familiar faces, and enjoy the rest of your week. Be good, be well, and definitely be safe. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.